The lobby of the Meridian Grand was not built for people like him. Everything about the place whispered money without saying it aloud. The marble floors polished to a mirror shine. The soft lighting designed to flatter faces already accustomed to comfort. The quiet confidence of people who never checked price tags. Even the air smelled expensive, faintly floral and impossibly clean, as if struggle had been filtered out along with the dust. He paused just inside the revolving doors, one hand resting on the handle of his worn duffel bag, the other holding his daughter's small fingers. She clutched a stuffed rabbit to her chest, its fur thinning from years of love. Her sneakers squeaked softly against the floor, a sound that felt too loud in a room where conversations happened in murmurs. He noticed the looks immediately. They weren't open stares. They were the quick, practiced glances of people trained to assess without appearing to judge. A flicker of curiosity, then dismissal. His jacket was clean but old. His shoes were polished but scuffed. He stood straight, shoulders squared, but there was a tiredness in his eyes that no amount of posture could hide. He had learned long ago not to flinch at that kind of attention. "Daddy," his daughter whispered, tugging his hand. "Are we in trouble?" He knelt in front of her, lowering himself until they were eye to eye. "No, sweetheart. We're just checking in." She nodded, trusting him the way only children could, the way that made the weight on his chest feel heavier and lighter at the same time. They approached the front desk together. The receptionist smiled automatically, the way people did when it was their job. Her eyes dropped to the screen, then flicked up at him, hesitating just a second too long before she spoke. "May I help you?" "Yes," he said calmly. "I have a reservation. Name's Daniel." She typed, lips pressed together. "I'm not seeing it." He swallowed. "It should be under Daniel Hale. One night." She searched again, slower this time. The smile faded, replaced by something cooler, more cautious. "I'm sorry, sir. There's no reservation under that name." His heart sank, but his voice didn't change. "It was made this morning, paid in advance." Behind him, someone cleared their throat impatiently. The receptionist leaned back slightly, scanning him again. His bag, his daughter, the rabbit. "Are you sure this is the correct property?" The question landed harder than it should have. He straightened. "Yes, I'm sure." Before she could respond, a woman stepped into the lobby from the private elevator near the back. The room shifted. People didn't turn toward her so much as adjust around her presence, like furniture being rearranged without a word. She walked with the kind of assurance that came from never doubting whether she belonged. Her suit was perfectly tailored, dark and understated, expensive without screaming for attention. Her heels didn't echo. They commanded silence. Her eyes swept the lobby automatically, cataloging everything in seconds. They stopped on him. For a brief moment, their gazes locked. Hers were sharp, assessing, already forming conclusions. His were steady, guarded, unreadable. He felt it then, the familiar tightening in his chest that came whenever someone decided who he was without asking. She frowned just slightly. He turned back to the desk, determined not to let it matter. "Is there another way to check? I can show the confirmation." The receptionist hesitated, glancing past him. "Is there a problem?" the woman asked, her voice calm but edged with authority. The receptionist straightened immediately. "Ms. Carter, I asked if there's a problem." The receptionist lowered her voice. "This gentleman claims to have a reservation, but I can't verify it." Miss Carter's gaze returned to him, sharper now. She took in the details she had missed before. The duffel bag, the child, the faint strain around his mouth. Something cold settled behind her eyes. "This is a private hotel," she said evenly. "We have high-profile guests today." He felt his daughter's grip tighten. "I understand," he replied. "I just need one night." Miss Carter tilted her head, studying him as if he were a risk calculation. "And why are you here, exactly?" The question was polite. The implication was not. He held her gaze. "Because I paid for a room." Silence stretched between them. Around them, the lobby seemed to hold its breath. Miss Carter made a decision. "Call security," she said. The words were soft, almost casual, but they landed like a door slamming shut. The receptionist reached for the phone. His daughter looked up at him, eyes wide. "Daddy," he exhaled slowly, steadying himself. He had known this moment would come sooner or later. Places like this always tested how much dignity a person could carry without proof. "It's okay," he murmured, though he wasn't sure if he believed it. Security arrived quickly. 2 men in dark suits, polite but firm, already assuming their role. "Sir," one of them said, "we're going to have to ask you to step aside." He nodded once. He bent down, lifted his bag, and took his daughter's hand. He did not argue. He did not raise his voice. He did not explain himself to people who had already decided. As they guided him toward the side of the lobby, Miss Carter watched, satisfied that control had been restored. She did not see the way his hands never trembled. She did not see the calm in his eyes. And she did not yet understand that in 9 minutes, everything she believed about power, danger, and worth was about to collapse. If you've ever been judged before being heard, take a moment to share your thoughts below. The security guard's hand hovered near Daniel's shoulder, not touching, but close enough to remind him who was in control. The other guard positioned himself slightly behind, creating a quiet but unmistakable wall. It was efficient, practiced, and impersonal, like removing an object that didn't belong. Daniel adjusted the strap of his duffel bag and kept walking. His daughter's steps slowed, confusion pulling her small face into a tight frown. She looked around the lobby as if expecting someone to stop this, someone to say there had been a mistake. When no one did, she pressed closer to his side. "It's okay," he said again, softer this time, meant only for her. Miss Carter stood near the front desk, arms loosely crossed, posture relaxed. From her perspective, the situation was already resolved. Order had been restored. A potential issue had been identified and removed before it could become something worse. That was her strength. Anticipation. Cutting off risk before it spread. She had built her career on it. Still, as Daniel passed her, she noticed something that made her pause. He didn't look angry. He didn't look desperate. There was no embarrassment in his expression, no pleading, just a quiet focus, as if his attention were turned inward, calculating next steps. That unsettled her more than resistance would have. "Wait," she said suddenly. The guard stopped. Daniel turned slowly, his face neutral. "Yes." Miss Carter met his eyes again, searching for something she could name. "I need to know who you are." He considered that. "My name is Daniel Hale. I mean here," she clarified. "Why this hotel?" "Because it was close," he replied. "And because it was available." "That's not an answer. It's the only one I have." A flicker of irritation crossed her face. "Do you have identification?" He nodded. "Yes." He reached into his jacket carefully, deliberately slow, and handed it to her. She took it without touching him, scanning the card. The name matched. The photo looked like him, though taken years earlier, before the lines around his eyes had deepened. She handed it back. "You understand," she said, voice cool, "that we can't be careless. Appearances matter." He almost smiled, but didn't. "They always do." The words were not an accusation. That was what made them sharper. Miss Carter straightened. "Security will escort you to the exit." His daughter looked up at her then. Really looked. "Did my daddy do something bad?" The question cut through the air. Miss Carter stiffened and used to being addressed like that, especially by a child. "No," she said after a beat. "But this is not the right place for you." Daniel felt something twist in his chest. He crouched down again, meeting his daughter's eyes. "Hey, remember what we talked about?" She nodded slowly. "Sometimes grown-ups make decisions fast," he continued. "Not because they're right, just because they're afraid of being wrong." Miss Carter's jaw tightened. He stood, nodding once to the guards. "We'll go." As they moved toward the exit, conversations in the lobby resumed, softer than before, curiosity already fading. For most people, the moment had passed. For Daniel, it had not. Outside, the city noise rushed back in. Traffic, voices, the hum of life continuing without regard for what had just happened. The glass doors closed behind them, sealing the Meridian Grand in its perfect, polished bubble. One of the guards cleared his throat. "Sir, we're just doing our job." "I know," Daniel said. "You did it well." The guard blinked, unsure how to respond. They reached the curb. The guard stepped back. "You're free to go." Daniel nodded. He took a step forward, then stopped. From inside the hotel, a sharp voice rose. Not loud, but urgent. Phones rang. Someone cursed under their breath. Miss Carter had turned away from the desk. Her attention snapped toward the elevators. Her calm expression cracked, just slightly. A man in a tailored suit hurried toward her, panic clear in his eyes. "Ma'am, we have a situation." Daniel noticed before she did. The tension in the air shifted, subtle but unmistakable. The kind he had learned to recognize years ago, when small problems became big ones because the wrong choice had already been made. Miss Carter spoke quickly, clipped. "Handle it." "We can't," the man said. "It's escalating." She exhaled sharply. "Get legal on the phone. They're already involved." Her confidence wavered, just for a moment. Daniel felt his daughter tug his hand. "Daddy, what's happening?" He looked back at the hotel. Something was wrong. He couldn't see it clearly yet, but he could feel it, the way some people could feel storms before the clouds gathered. The Meridian Grand was no longer calm. Its order was unraveling. The guard followed his gaze. "You should go, sir." Daniel hesitated. This was the moment he always reached. The one where walking away was easier, where dignity could be preserved by distance. But something else stirred beneath that instinct. Responsibility. Habit. The knowledge that some messes didn't care who belonged where. Inside the hotel, Miss Carter raised her voice, sharp now. "I need solutions, not explanations." Her eyes flicked toward the glass doors. They landed on Daniel. For the first time since she had entered the lobby, uncertainty crossed her face. He stood still on the sidewalk, his daughter at his side, watching the building that had just rejected him begin to crack under pressure. He had not planned to stay. But 9 minutes was a long time when everything was falling apart. Daniel felt it before he understood it. The sound drifting through the glass doors wasn't shouting. Not exactly. It was sharper than that. Controlled voices raised just enough to signal urgency. Clipped sentences overlapping. The subtle chaos of people trying not to panic while already doing so. He shifted his grip on the duffel bag. The security guard glanced at him again, uneasy now. "Sir, I really suggest you move along." Daniel didn't answer. His attention was fixed on the lobby, where the atmosphere had changed completely. The calm elegance was cracking, hairline fractures spreading fast. Guests had stopped pretending not to notice. Phones were out. Whispers multiplied. Inside, Ms. Carter stood rigid near the front desk. "What do you mean the system is locked?" she demanded. The man in the suit shook his head. "Someone triggered a containment protocol. All executive access is frozen." "That's impossible," she snapped. "Only 3 people can authorize that." "Yes," he said, "and one of them just did." Her eyes widened. "Who?" Before he could answer, another voice cut in. "Ma'am, the board is on the line." Miss Carter's breath shortened. This wasn't just an inconvenience. This was exposure. The Meridian Grand wasn't just a hotel today. It was hosting a private merger meeting upstairs. Sensitive negotiations. Confidential data. If the wrong protocol had been triggered at the wrong time. Her jaw tightened. "Get IT. Now." "They're already trying," the man said. "But the lockout is escalating. If it completes, the entire floor goes dark. Financials, access logs, everything." Someone dropped a pen. The sound echoed too loudly. Outside, Daniel closed his eyes briefly. He knew that protocol. He had helped design something like it years ago, back when his life had looked very different. Back when the word collapse meant something else entirely. The sensation crawling up his spine wasn't fear. It was recognition. His daughter tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, why do they look scared?" He knelt, placing the bag on the ground. Because something important isn't working the way it should. Can they fix it? He hesitated. Maybe. The security guard cleared his throat. Sir, this really isn't your concern. Daniel stood slowly. You're right, he said. It isn't. Inside the lobby, Ms. Carter turned sharply toward the doors. She didn't know why she was looking there. Instinct, maybe, or desperation. Her gaze locked onto Daniel again, standing calmly on the sidewalk as if the building hadn't just expelled him. For a fraction of a second, their eyes met. Something shifted. She broke eye contact first. Get him back inside, she said suddenly. The receptionist blinked. Ma'am, the man we escorted out. Bring him back. The security guard looked startled. You want us to? Now, Miss Carter said. The guard stepped aside, opening the door. Sir. Daniel looked down at his daughter. She searched his face, trusting him to decide. He exhaled once. Stay close to me, he told her. They stepped back into the lobby. The temperature felt different, charged. Miss Carter approached him quickly, no trace of her earlier composure left uncracked. Do you know anything about systems security? Yes, Daniel said. How well? Well enough to know you're 3 minutes from losing control of that floor, he replied calmly. Silence crashed over the space. Miss Carter stared at him. How could you possibly know that? Because whoever triggered the protocol didn't mean to stop at level 1, Daniel said. And because the fail-safes were never updated. Her throat worked as she swallowed. Can you fix it? He didn't answer immediately. This was the moment. The one that always came disguised as urgency. He could feel the weight of it pressing down on him, heavier than the duffel bag, heavier than the judgment he'd just swallowed. He thought of the way she'd looked at him when she'd called security. The ease of it. The certainty. He thought of his daughter's question. He looked at Miss Carter. Yes, he said. But not like this. What do you mean? She asked. I won't be rushed, he replied. And I won't be treated like a liability. Her lips parted, protest forming. But then another voice shouted, Ma'am. The timer just dropped. Miss Carter closed her eyes for a split second. Fine, she said. What do you need? Access, Daniel said. Full access. And a quiet room. That's not protocol. Neither is what's happening upstairs, he interrupted. She nodded sharply. Do it. As they moved toward the elevators, people parted instinctively, watching him with new eyes. Not suspicion this time. Expectation. Daniel felt his daughter squeeze his hand. Daddy. He glanced down at her. You okay? She nodded. You're not scared. No, he said softly. I'm just focused. They reached the private elevator. Miss Carter swiped her card, hands unsteady now. The doors slid closed. The numbers climbed. For the first time, Miss Carter spoke without command in her voice. Why did you come back? Daniel watched the numbers. Because walking away doesn't always mean winning. The elevator stopped. The doors opened. And with 6 minutes remaining, the collapse began in earnest. If this moment is hitting you emotionally, a simple like lets me know you're feeling it too. Daniel felt it before he understood it. The sound drifting through the glass doors wasn't shouting. Not exactly. It was sharper than that. Controlled voices raised just enough to signal urgency. Clipped sentences overlapping. The subtle chaos of people trying not to panic while already doing so. He shifted his grip on the duffel bag. The security guard glanced at him again. Uneasy now. Sir, I really suggest you move along. Daniel didn't answer. His attention was fixed on the lobby, where the atmosphere had changed completely. The calm elegance was cracking, hairline fractures spreading fast. Guests had stopped pretending not to notice. Phones were out. Whispers multiplied. Inside, Ms. Carter stood rigid near the front desk. What do you mean the system is locked? She demanded. The man in the suit shook his head. Someone triggered a containment protocol. All executive access is frozen. That's impossible, she snapped. Only 3 people can authorize that. Yes, he said. And one of them just did. Her eyes widened. Who? Before he could answer, another voice cut in. "Ma'am, the board is on the line." Miss Carter's breath shortened. This wasn't just an inconvenience. This was exposure. The Meridian Grand wasn't just a hotel today. It was hosting a private merger meeting upstairs. Sensitive negotiations. Confidential data. If the wrong protocol had been triggered at the wrong time. Her jaw tightened. "Get IT. Now." "They're already trying," the man said. "But the lockout is escalating. If it completes, the entire floor goes dark. Financials, access logs, everything." Someone dropped a pen. The sound echoed too loudly. Outside, Daniel closed his eyes briefly. He knew that protocol. He had helped design something like it years ago, back when his life had looked very different. Back when the word collapse meant something else entirely. The sensation crawling up his spine wasn't fear. It was recognition. His daughter tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, why do they look scared?" He knelt, placing the bag on the ground. "Because something important isn't working the way it should. Can they fix it?" He hesitated. "Maybe." The security guard cleared his throat. "Sir, this really isn't your concern." Daniel stood slowly. "You're right," he said. "It isn't." Inside the lobby, Miss Carter turned sharply toward the doors. She didn't know why she was looking there. Instinct, maybe, or desperation. Her gaze locked onto Daniel again, standing calmly on the sidewalk as if the building hadn't just expelled him. For a fraction of a second, their eyes met. Something shifted. She broke eye contact first. "Get him back inside," she said suddenly. The receptionist blinked. "Ma'am, the man we escorted out. Bring him back." The security guard looked startled. "You want us to?" "Now," Miss Carter said. The guard stepped aside, opening the door. "Sir." Daniel looked down at his daughter. She searched his face, trusting him to decide. He exhaled once. "Stay close to me," he told her. They stepped back into the lobby. The temperature felt different, charged. Miss Carter approached him quickly, no trace of her earlier composure left uncracked. "Do you know anything about systems security?" "Yes," Daniel said. "How well?" "Well enough to know you're 3 minutes from losing control of that floor," he replied calmly. Silence crashed over the space. Miss Carter stared at him. "How could you possibly know that?" "Because whoever triggered the protocol didn't mean to stop at level 1, Daniel said. "And because the fail-safes were never updated." Her throat worked as she swallowed. "Can you fix it?" He didn't answer immediately. This was the moment. The one that always came disguised as urgency. He could feel the weight of it pressing down on him, heavier than the duffel bag, heavier than the judgment he'd just swallowed. He thought of the way she'd looked at him when she'd called security. The ease of it. The certainty. He thought of his daughter's question. He looked at Miss Carter. "Yes," he said. "But not like this." "What do you mean?" she asked. "I won't be rushed," he replied. "And I won't be treated like a liability." Her lips parted, protest forming. But then another voice shouted, "Ma'am." The timer just dropped. Miss Carter closed her eyes for a split second. "Fine," she said. "What do you need?" "Access," Daniel said. "Full access. And a quiet room." "That's not protocol." "Neither is what's happening upstairs," he interrupted. She nodded sharply. "Do it." As they moved toward the elevators, people parted instinctively, watching him with new eyes. Not suspicion this time. Expectation. Daniel felt his daughter squeeze his hand. "Daddy." He glanced down at her. "You okay?" She nodded. "You're not scared?" "No," he said softly. "I'm just focused." They reached the private elevator. Miss Carter swiped her card, hands unsteady now. The doors slid closed. The numbers climbed. For the first time, Miss Carter spoke without command in her voice. "Why did you come back?" Daniel watched the numbers. Because walking away doesn't always mean winning. The elevator stopped. The doors opened. And with 6 minutes remaining, the collapse began in earnest. If this moment is hitting you emotionally, a simple like lets me know you're feeling it too. The conference floor was colder than the lobby. Not in temperature, but in feeling. The walls were glass and steel, designed to project transparency while hiding everything that mattered behind access codes and permissions. Screens lined one side of the room, most of them frozen now. Numbers paused mid-update like a heartbeat caught between beats. The people inside looked relieved and afraid at the same time. Daniel stepped in first, his daughter close at his side. Conversations died instantly. Men and women in tailored suits turned toward him, some with open skepticism, others with barely concealed hope. No one spoke. Miss Carter followed, her presence no longer commanding silence but demanding answers. "Clear the room," she said. "Everyone but IT and legal." There was hesitation, then movement. As people filed out, Daniel scanned the space quickly. He didn't rush. He didn't need to. His eyes tracked the systems, the layout, the way redundancy had been built but poorly maintained. Someone had cut corners here. Someone had assumed nothing would ever go wrong. Assumptions were expensive. He set the duffel bag down gently near the wall and knelt in front of his daughter. "You're going to sit right here, okay?" She nodded, hugging her rabbit. "I'll be quiet." "I know," he said, brushing her hair back. "You always are." Miss Carter watched the exchange, something unreadable flickering across her face. Daniel stood and approached the central console. "Who triggered the protocol?" he asked, already typing. A man from legal hesitated. "We think it was an internal failsafe. A defensive move." "No," Daniel said calmly. "It was manual. Accidental but manual." Miss Carter stiffened. "Are you saying someone on my team caused this?" "I'm saying the system responded exactly as it was told," Daniel replied. "Machines don't panic. People do." The timer in the corner ticked down. Miss Carter folded her arms, trying to reclaim control. "How long until we lose everything? If we do nothing?" Daniel glanced at the screen. "4 minutes. And if we do something? Then we have a chance." She exhaled sharply. "What do you need?" "Silence," he said. "And trust." The room fell quiet. Daniel's fingers moved with practiced ease, navigating layers of security that hadn't been touched in years. He murmured to himself occasionally, not narrating, just thinking out loud the way he always did when things mattered. Miss Carter watched, unease twisting in her stomach. This was not how experts usually looked. There was no showmanship, no ego, just focus, control without performance. She had built her world on visible authority. He was dismantling a crisis without it. "Who are you?" she asked quietly. Daniel didn't look up. "Someone who learned the hard way what happens when systems fail." Her gaze dropped briefly to his hands. They were steady, scarred if she looked closely. Not the hands of someone who had always worked behind a desk. A warning flashed red across the main screen. Daniel leaned closer. "There it is." "What does that mean?" Legal asked. "It means whoever set this up expected someone like me to be locked out," Daniel replied. "They didn't expect me to be standing in the room." Miss Carter felt the words land. Someone like me. The timer hit 2 minutes. Her heart pounded. She had faced hostile takeovers, lawsuits, public scandals. None of them felt like this. None of them stripped her power so completely. "Daniel," she said, using his name for the first time. "If this fails." "It won't," he said, not unkindly. That certainty did something to her. The lights flickered. His daughter looked up. "Daddy, I'm here," he said immediately. He typed faster now but still controlled. A sequence ran. Then another. The red warning paused. Everyone held their breath. The timer stopped. For a second, nothing happened. Then the screens refreshed. Data returned. Access restored. The room exhaled as one. A quiet sound escaped Miss Carter before she could stop it. "You did it," Legal said, stunned. Daniel leaned back, rubbing his eyes briefly. Crisis contained. For now. Miss Carter stepped closer, searching his face. "You just saved this company." He shrugged. "I fixed a problem. That problem was worth millions." "Problems don't care about price tags," he replied. Silence settled again, different this time. heavier, more respectful. Miss Carter straightened, all eyes on her now. This was the moment she would normally reclaim the room, reassert dominance, take credit. She didn't. Instead, she said, "Thank you." The words were simple, genuine. They cost her more than any apology ever had. Daniel nodded once. "You're welcome." She hesitated. "I was wrong about you." "Yes," he agreed. It wasn't said with bitterness, just truth. She absorbed that, the weight of it pressing down on her chest. "I judged you." "Yes." Another pause. "And you still helped." Daniel glanced toward his daughter. "I don't teach her to walk away from people just because they fail." Miss Carter swallowed. For the first time, she saw him clearly, not as a liability, not as an inconvenience, but as a man whose strength didn't need recognition to exist. Outside the glass walls, the world continued moving. Inside, something fundamental had shifted. Power hadn't changed hands. It had been redefined. The relief in the room didn't last long. It never did. Daniel felt it as the adrenaline drained away, leaving behind the quiet clarity that always followed crisis. Systems stabilized. Screens glowed steadily. Voices lowered to cautious optimism. But beneath it all, something else churned. Consequences catching up to decisions already made. Miss Carter straightened her jacket, instinctively rebuilding the armor she wore so well. "We need to assess damage," she said, turning to legal. "And secure the perimeter. No one outside this floor." "Yes, ma'am," they replied. Daniel watched her, recognizing the rhythm. The reset. Control reasserted not by force, but by familiarity. This was her world. He had stepped into it briefly, bent it back into shape, and now the space was reclaiming her. He reached for his duffel bag. "Wait," she said. He paused, not turning. "My part's done." "It's not," she replied. "The board wants to speak with you." He finally faced her. "About what?" "About how you access systems you shouldn't have been able to touch," she said carefully. "About why you were outside this building 5 minutes before everything went wrong." He considered that. And after, she admitted. "About what to do with you." The words were honest. That mattered. Daniel's jaw tightened. "I didn't come back to negotiate my existence." Miss Carter held his gaze. "You came back because you couldn't let it fail." "Yes," he said. "Not because I needed approval." Silence stretched between them again. His daughter shifted on the chair, swinging her legs. The crisis had passed, but she sensed the tension lingering. "Daddy?" she whispered. "Are we leaving?" Daniel looked at her, then back at Miss Carter. "That depends," he said. Miss Carter exhaled slowly. "I owe you more than a thank you." "I don't collect debts," he replied. "No," she said. "But you deserve options." She gestured toward the conference table. "Sit, please." He hesitated, then set his bag down again, sitting across from her with his daughter close. The board joined via screen, faces appearing one by one, curious, guarded, assessing. Miss Carter introduced him plainly. "This is Daniel Hale. He prevented a catastrophic breach." Questions followed. Technical, probing, measured. Daniel answered calmly, without embellishment. He explained what he'd done, why it worked, and what still needed to be fixed. "And your background?" a voice asked. Daniel paused. "I used to build systems like yours. Then I stopped." "Why?" "Because life changed," he said simply. They exchanged looks. "We'd like to offer you a consulting role," another voice said. "Short-term, generous compensation." Daniel didn't answer immediately. Miss Carter watched him, unsure which way he'd lean. She felt the balance shift again, this time inside her. She wanted him to say yes for the company, yes, but also for reasons she hadn't yet named. "What are the terms?" Daniel asked. "Immediate access. Full authority within scope. Discretion guaranteed." "And after?" he asked. "After," the voice said, "we discuss permanence." Daniel nodded slowly. "I need a moment." He stood and moved a few steps away, crouching in front of his daughter. "What do you think?" he asked quietly. She considered, serious. I think you don't like being told what to do. A smile tugged at his mouth. That's true. And I think, she added, that lady said sorry. He glanced at Miss Carter, who stood a respectful distance away, waiting. She did, he said. Are you mad? No, he said. I'm deciding. She nodded, satisfied. Okay. He stood and returned to the table. I appreciate the offer, Daniel said. But I won't accept it like this. The board stilled. Explain. You called security on me, he said, looking at Miss Carter. Not accusing, just stating fact. You treated me as a risk before a person. Miss Carter's throat tightened. And now, he continued, you want my expertise without addressing that. The silence deepened. Miss Carter stepped forward. He's right. All eyes turned to her. I misjudged him, she said, publicly, and I let power do what it always does when it isn't questioned. The board murmured. She met Daniel's eyes. I'm sorry. Not rehearsed. Not softened. Real. Daniel felt something ease inside him. Not satisfaction. Resolution. I'll help, he said. On one condition. Miss Carter nodded. Name it. I'm not your employee, he said. I'm a partner. And when this is over, I walk away with my dignity intact. The board considered. Then nodded. Agreed. Daniel picked up his bag. Miss Carter blinked. You're leaving. For tonight, he said. You know where to find me. She hesitated. I want you to stay. He looked at her. Really looked. The woman behind the title. The fear behind the control. Tonight, he said gently. I choose my daughter. She nodded, understanding the weight of that choice. As they walked toward the elevator, the world felt different. Not lighter, clearer. Some decisions defined careers. Others defined character. Daniel knew which one mattered more. Morning came quietly, the kind of morning that felt earned rather than given. Pale light slipped through the thin curtains of the modest hotel room Daniel had booked after leaving the Meridian Grand. The room wasn't elegant. It wasn't impressive. But it was clean, safe, and far enough away from polished marble floors and judging eyes. Daniel woke before his alarm. His daughter slept beside him, curled toward his side, her stuffed rabbit tucked under her chin. He watched her breathe for a long moment, grounding himself in the simple miracle of it. Nights like the last one always stirred memories he tried not to revisit. Systems failing, people panicking, responsibility landing on his shoulders whether he wanted it or not. He rose quietly and checked his phone. 3 missed calls, all from Miss Carter. He stared at the screen, then set the phone down without responding. Not yet. They ate breakfast together at the small table by the window. Pancakes from a box, juice poured carefully to avoid spills. His daughter chatted about the elevator ride, about how tall the building had been, about the lady who'd looked scared but not mean anymore. Daniel listened, nodding, letting her words settle something in him. When they finished, he packed their things slowly. There was no rush now. Whatever storm had been brewing, it wasn't his to chase. The knock came just as he zipped the duffel bag closed. Firm, controlled, familiar. He opened the door. Miss Carter stood in the hallway, alone. She wasn't wearing her suit. Instead, she wore a simple coat, her hair pulled back without precision. No assistance, no security, just her. The woman, not the title. I hoped it was still you, she said quietly. Daniel stepped aside. Come in. She entered, taking in the room with a careful glance. The worn carpet, the small table, the child's jacket draped over the chair. Nothing about this place matched the world she ruled, and she felt that mismatch acutely. I didn't know where else to find you, she said. You did, he replied. You just didn't before. She nodded, accepting the truth of that. May I sit? He gestured to the chair. She sat, hands folded, unsure for the first time in a long while how to begin. I didn't sleep, she said finally. I kept replaying yesterday. That's normal, Daniel said. After control slips. Her lips pressed together. You didn't owe us anything. No, he agreed. And you still helped. Yes. She met his eyes. I've spent my life believing authority comes from being untouchable. And now? He asked. And now I realize it comes from being accountable, she said. I failed that test yesterday. Daniel leaned against the table. You're not the first. She inhaled, steadying herself. The board approved the partnership. On your terms. He didn't react. I assumed they would. They also approved something else, she added. A formal apology. Internal. Public if you want it. He shook his head. I don't need an audience. I thought you'd say that, she admitted. Silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, but deliberate. His daughter peeked around the corner. Hi, she said. Miss Carter's face softened instantly. Hello. She's the reason I left, Daniel said gently. I know, Miss Carter replied. And she's the reason I'm here. Daniel studied her. Explain. She stood. I'm asking you to stay. Not because the company needs you. Because I do. The honesty startled even her. I don't mean professionally, she continued quickly. Not only that. Yesterday, you showed me something I didn't know I'd lost. What's that? Perspective, she said. Human cost. The difference between power and worth. Daniel considered her words carefully. And you think staying fixes that? No, she said. I think walking away from it would guarantee I never change. He glanced toward his daughter, who watched them quietly, sensing the importance of the moment. You humiliated me, Daniel said. Publicly. I know. You assumed the worst. Yes. And now you're asking for trust. She nodded. Not immediately. Not blindly. Just the chance to earn it. Daniel exhaled slowly. He thought of the years he'd spent shrinking himself to survive. Of teaching his daughter dignity without bitterness. Of walking away because it was safer than hoping. Staying doesn't mean surrender, he said. I wouldn't ask for that, she replied. And leaving doesn't mean fear, he added. No, she agreed. It means choice. That mattered. He picked up his duffel bag and set it back down deliberately. I'll stay, he said. For now. Relief flickered across her face, quickly reined in. Thank you. This isn't a favor, he corrected. It's an experiment. She smiled faintly. Those are usually the most honest things we do. They walked out together, not side by side, but not apart either. Equals for the first time. In the elevator, his daughter tugged his hand. Daddy. Yes. Is she nicer now? He smiled. She's trying. Miss Carter met his gaze. I intend to keep trying. The doors opened. The Meridian Grand waited, unchanged on the surface but different in ways that mattered. And as they stepped inside, Daniel understood something clearly. Power could invite you in, but character decided whether you stayed. If you believe stories about quiet strength, earned respect, and choosing integrity over convenience matter, you already belong here. Subscribe and stay with us.